We here now. Shout out to all the sponsors and everything like that. Shout out to everybody in the room. Peace, everybody in the room. This episode right here is gonna be about healing, and we with our special guest Zeno right now, sound healer and certified NLP. I want to let you introduce yourself before we get into the questions and stuff.
Well, first and foremost, again, I just want to say I already shared this even before the broadcast started. I'm extremely grateful and honored to be here on your platform. I think that, again, what you guys are doing are amazing. My wife was on here recently, and like I was sharing again before the broadcast even started, the conversation was it was extremely illuminating. It was extremely high level, high frequency. It had a real high vibe to it. And like I said, I was biting my tongue, man. I was like, you know what I'm saying, pressing down on my lips to try to chomp at the bit to get in, but I knew that that was her time, right? But about 20 seconds before you guys ended, or so, maybe 15 seconds before you ended, I had to. I was like, yo, can I just say one thing? I really made it a point to want to share and create this conversation that I think is kind of happening, I think, in different pockets, but a much needed conversation about the men healing. It's time for the men to heal, and we're seeing this play out on a much larger scale with, let's just use the example, Jada and Will, right? It's a lot of talk about that whole relationship and how volatile it is and how crazy it is, right? But at the end of the day, what we're actually all seeing is the power of agreement between two individuals, and those two individuals have to go in and do some serious individual spiritual work for themselves. They got to do some healing, right? But they're still in agreement with each other. So regardless to the entanglements, regardless to, the major slap on heard across the world, we're seeing these emotions and all of these different things being played out because of the trauma that's being held on the inside. And as men, the women are taking an initial step. I believe, as always, they are leaders. And so we see this, my wife and I, my family and I, we see this when we're holding ceremonies and retreats, right? Healing ceremonies and healing retreats. It's predominantly women in the space. As one of the very few men that are in the space to hold space and to make sure that, I'm a protector and also a guide in the space, and also help facilitate and administer in the space. At the end of the day, the women are the leaders. The women are the ones that are coming to the space willingly and open, cracked open, ready to heal. And I know that it is time for our men to face themselves, to go inside of their universes, inside of their kingdoms, inside, internally. It's that internal mirror that, we need to be looking at and going in and asking ourselves questions. Why am I so angry? Why am I not in a position that I really need to be in? I feel like I should be further along and I'm not. And this isn't for the young 21-year-old, 18, 21, 25, 30-year-old. I'm talking to the OGs out there, that's still in these positions where they're questioning their purpose in life. They're questioning, what is their direction in life? We talking about people that's 60, 70 years old, still trying to figure out what is my purpose in life. Like, we got to start going on the inside. And I believe once we do that, and we're being transparent and honest with ourselves, then we can begin to heal and create a totally different vibe, a much more positive vibe that we can build with our women. We can build in relationships, just period, overall. We can begin to see some serious progress that we've been waiting on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, especially in this country. Like we can do some things without anybody's permission, but we got to be able to release and let go of the pride, let go of the ego, and or at least that real negative heavy side of the ego, because you still need ego in order to operate. And let's get to a more positive end on things.
It's the vulnerability. I think it's the vulnerability. I think in order for you to find out what your purpose is, you kind of gotta like strip yourself down a little bit, and you gotta bring yourself. It's almost like you gotta be a kid again a little bit and deal with all those emotions, and you're not just suppressing it and saying, "Hey, oh, I feel all these things. Let me just ignore it." You got to look at all your weaknesses now. You got to look at all your negative sides now. You got to take accountability to yourself. It's not about a conversation with nobody else. You got to say all them times you did that stuff that you don't consider solid. You got to think about those times. Those times you were scared. Those times you fell short. You got to sit there and think about those things as well as the positive things too. It's a balance thing. I think the balance equilibrium is way off when it comes down to like how to use pride and how to use ego is way off. It's no the scale is so off that it's just like we lean on pride and things like that way too much. We give it too much power, and we think it's the mecca of the earth or something like that when it's really not.
People scared to have a conversation. How are we gonna possibly heal if two men like have an issue with communication? Like we have like just as a culture, we just have a huge issue with communication. You know what I'm saying? So when you sprinkle that in with the ego, it's a recipe for disaster. You can't do nothing with that.
Exactly. And I honestly feel like, again, the reason why there is this breakdown in communication is because we're so used to responding and reacting, right? We've been placed in environments where, like you said, we have to be aware, and you have to react quickly. Here it is. I was having a conversation with two older Caucasian women while eating breakfast with my wife at a really nice restaurant right here in California. And she came out of the blue, one of them, and she said, right around this area, there's a park that, my girlfriend and I, we walk. They're in their late 60s, early 70s. So these are older Caucasian women, and I'm having this conversation with them. And so one turns to me and she says, so my friend and I were walking in the park and we actually saw a guy get set on fire. And I was like, right. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, to be honest, I wasn't even fazed by it. I was like, yeah, okay. And she made a statement and it stuck with me. She said, you know what? I just realized that my girlfriend and I, she used this term, and I was like, oh wow, this is what we've been living in as a culture our whole lives. She said, we have to be more situationally aware. She used the term situationally aware. And I just thought, as a culture, we've been born right in a circumstance to where you come out the womb having to be situationally aware. So we're used to that.
Absolutely.
And doing that, again, like I said, when young boys especially are taught to suppress their emotions, walk it off, what are you crying for? Man up, all of those things at a very, very young age. Then if we are not really being taught to communicate at an early age, we're going to react and we're going to mimic our environment. You don't get a result, somebody getting smacked. You don't get a result, somebody getting shot. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just a lot of healing that has to take place. There's a lot of different ways that we can approach this. One of the most effective ways and one of the quickest ways to be able to receive some healing is actually going through a plant medicine ceremony. And I'm not saying this because, it's not a biased opinion. It's just based off of experience. And they have science to back this up, right? They have scientific data to back this up. Let's just say someone goes on a plant medicine journey and it's an overnight situation. What they're actually doing is they're now being catapulted into their universe, into the spiritual realm or their internal universe, when the left side of the brain, the left hemisphere of the brain then begins to connect, right? Neuropathically, meaning creating new neural pathways from the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain, which is the subconscious. And the subconscious is constantly recording. It never shuts down. So that means that all of that information, right, when we're up and awake, when we're asleep, we're talking about from previous lifetimes, because it never sleeps. It's always recording. It's a limitless, infinite amount of information within the subconscious mind. So every answer that we're looking for is inside of us. That's what I'm saying. Everything that we need is actually inside of us. And so these different plant medicines and earth medicines are able to create a conducive way for the brain now to fire off and connect us to that subconscious world or our internal universe, our kingdom. And now we having an experience where when we come out of it, they have the data that shows that emotionally your outlook on life is better. Negative behavioral patterns, right, have now been wiped away. We've seen people that have serious drug addictions sit it down for a year or so after one session, right, with plant medicine and this earth medicine, just go cold turkey from a serious addiction, right? And so this is one of the main ways, the quickest ways that we could do that. Now, of course, you have yoga and meditation and, sound healing. You have exercise and reading, meditation, all these different things. They're modes and practices, right, that one would have to move into in order to include into their daily regimen, making it now a ritual. Because there's a difference between a ritual and a ceremony. A ritual is something that you do on a daily. A ceremony is something that you do, right, with serious, heavy intent, normally in a collective group, to come in, right, and tackle a situation because of your intentions. You tackle that situation, get the breakthrough, and you step up out of there vibrating higher on a different frequency, a different vibration. But what do you do, right? If you haven't been living a lifestyle where you're moving in these practices and you haven't approached the ceremony like that, what's going to happen when you run into the first speed bump, right? Or that phone call coming in and somebody getting on your nerves asking you to do something, and that's all they do. They haven't even said, how you doing? Or whatever it is that's going to trigger you. How do you maintain that? And so it is, from my experience, seeing that my hope too is that I feel like there's an awareness out here now, because we live in this age of Aquarius. It is, right, the age of awakening, right? So we hearing vibration, we hearing the words frequency. You know what I'm saying? We hearing these words. And I don't remember hearing these words 5 years ago, 10 years ago, people speaking like that. But younger generations are now moving in a level of knowing. They know. They just know about supernatural and spiritual things. That's why I said I'm like excited to be on here, because in my 20s, I was in the club. In my early 20s, I was in the club. I was only thinking about myself, how to get this money, how to spend it, how to trick it off. I wasn't spirit, vibration, frequency. It was either turn the music up, you know what I'm saying? But for inner peace, I wasn't searching for no inner peace. And so these are the conversations that are happening because we're simply living in the age of Aquarius, the age, right, of knowing, or the mass awakening. And so with that, I feel like there should be a balance, because we are having this conversation and we are in the know that people are moving in some of these different practices, right? Yoga and all these different things. Well, then make that a daily part of your ritual, so that when you do get ready to seriously knock down some walls and approach some major healing to solve some serious trauma, then connect with something that's going to catapult you in a place where you can make that connection and go deep within yourself. I mean, how does that make you guys feel? Because I mean, I'm an ass sister too, but being two gentlemen on the platform, how does that even make you feel, thinking about, oh man, you talking about going on a plant medicine journey just right off the rip? Like, there's a stigma and a stereotype to it, right? And with it, versus how it really goes down and what it really is. So how do y'all feel about that?
Hugo, you could go first.
Yeah, I feel like it's something you got to be prepared for. Um, I just feel like it's something you got to be prepared for. I think I got a understanding of the concept. You know what I mean? I understand the feminine and masculine brain and stuff like that. You got to be prepared for it, and you got to want it, and you got to know like it's time if you do go on that journey. Because sometimes people are going through things and they don't necessarily, they're at a point in their life where they're like, they are not ready, and they know they're not ready, or they're not ready to take that leap of faith. So I say this is something you educate yourself on and get familiar with information, start to understand the brain a little bit more before you just dive in and stuff like that, and just try to get some knowledge about the situation a little bit. You could just take a leap of faith if you want to, if you feeling that way. It all depends. It all depends.
Yeah, that's good.
Like, I'm open to it, but I'm afraid for multiple reasons. Let me see
I
what.
love it. I love it. I'm glad you going there.
All right, so basically, like, one, I don't really know how I'm gonna react because I have a lot of demons that I bury. So I don't really know how I'm gonna react. I could be like unpredictable sometimes. So there's that aspect. And then another aspect of it is basically there's still a part of me that I'm afraid of. And I struggle to control that part of myself. And a part of me feels like if I do the medicine, then that part of me, maybe I might lose that part of me, or the protector, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the person that doesn't take no shit, that's ready to knock somebody blind. Yeah, him.
Yeah.
Necessary for me.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I remember a time when I was younger when he was in development, he wasn't around. So a part of me still feels like I need him, but at the same time, I don't know how to control him. So it's kind of like it's a lot of confusion in it. It's a lot of turbulence and static in it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
So for me, I've always wanted to try it. Let me tell you, because I I pray on, what I want that's best for me, because I have my own issues I'm dealing with, right? And I'm taking medicine for seizures. So I been praying, me and Design, like, been watching each other go through certain things. Royalty hasn't really seen my episodes, but Design was always with me when I do have my episodes, and we both basically want to learn how to heal ourselves naturally, which is why I changed over from pharmaceuticals to medicinal herbals, right? And that's where you guys met me off of my herbal page. That's Squeaky Clean Juices X Gems. So that's
Right.
why I have a whole story. That's why I wanted to tell Princella. I was like, I'm gonna talk to her on the side, because I really want to do this work. So when I've been praying for her to come along, people like you, her ads popped up on my Instagram, and so I know that, the universe, creator, hears our words, our thoughts, our sounds, our prayers, and it always gets answered. So for me, I'm open to it because I've been praying for this. So I want to go there.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid anymore. I was afraid, but at this point, when you see, you have questions like, you know, like, am I really going to be on medicine for the rest of my life? Do I want to be on medicine, or do I want to break out of that?
Man, you know, that brings up something relative to my experience and what even brought my wife and I, you know, to this pathway. I was hit with a serious health diagnosis. It was me being diagnosed with prostate cancer. They had given me 3 years to live. And no one in my family that I had known of had even ever dealt with cancer or anything like that before. Of course, initially my response was, well, how did this happen and why me, right? But at the time, my family and I were on a television network called Bravo Network, and we were on a reality television show called The People's Couch. It was known for about 7 families either being in their living rooms or bedroom and watching television and giving commentary on some of the most latest television shows and just all this different type of entertainment and content, right? And so going into it, my idea for my family was, we're going to be the family known for what we eat. So I was sort of a serious snack king. So I had all of the craziest, you know, snacks. I'm talking about suckers, you know, gigantic suckers and candy bars and pieces of candy and all kinds of stuff. So that when people saw us, they was like excited about what was going to be on that dining room or living room table. You feel what I'm saying? But I was eating this stuff. I was eating it, consuming it and consuming it. Tons of sugar, all kinds of junk. And so when we came out of that, right after I think 3 or 4 seasons, we're getting ready to get greenlit for our 5th season. And they just took a turn. The network decided, yo, we want to go in a different direction. And so right after that is when I got the diagnosis. And here I am now having the diagnosis, but yet asking God initially, how did this happen? Right? That's what I mean. That is, see, it always goes back to self at the end of the day. Yeah, spirit was like, yo, you did this to you. Straight up like that. Yeah, as well as a lot of trauma. Also, right, mixed in that bag. You know, all kinds of stress mixed in that bag.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So now here it is. I get hit with this diagnosis, and my feelings about the medical industry and the research that I had did, I was going, no, I'm not going to put my life in their hands. I'm not going to do it. And having, or coming from a religious background, being a Christian and having a serious position in the church, we were connected to a mega church back in Michigan, was there for 12 years. And I had a position as psalmist, the person who sang before, you know, the minister came up to speak. So it was my voice that got people prepared emotionally to be able to receive. I was hanging on to all of that. And literally I was like, yo, I'm gonna go with God on this. At least here it is now, because I'm faced with a life or death situation. Have I been living a serious lie my whole life? Because now I really need God. Am I going to walk this out, or am I going to put my life in the hands of people that I don't trust? And so I went with spirit. I was like, yo, if it's my time and it's time for me to go, I'm going to do that. And my wife went into overdrive. It was many nights where she lost sleep, didn't sleep. I fell asleep to a light on a computer of her doing research while I'm getting ready to roll over and go to sleep. And that led us down a road to dealing with things that the church didn't really agree with. The church is still, most of them still fighting about cannabis. Okay. But that was one of the first things that spirit led me to. Talking about healing.
I got a funny story about that cannabis in the church, because I definitely was helping heal people in the church with the cannabis.
Well, yeah, please share. I look forward to hearing it. But that was one of the first things that, Spirit led us to.
I love to hear that, because people need to get free from the church, man. I ain't gonna sit here and lie. People need to come out them churches, man. But I'm not saying like to stop, you know what I'm saying, having a connection with God and nothing like that. But the churches is just not teaching the right doctrine. And it's clear as day now.
Here's the thing with that, real quick. It's all about the research. Listen, when we get ready to go off, make sure that you stick around so that you can come back. This is going to be, I guess, in some intervals where, we'll come back, and then let's get into it. Let's continue to, get into it. But yeah, I remember where we were as far as the whole research in the church, not really being willing to look outside of the Bible and look outside of that information to really do the historical research to figure out it. They'd be shocked that people actually in the church back in those days, thousands of years ago, actually smoked marijuana in the holies of holies, kept cannabis and other things right there to evoke the very presence of God. So, but you got to be willing and open to move past that form of fear to now be open to say, yo, what's really going on? You got to ask some questions and be ready for what you get.
Amen.
And it's also the literal aspect too as well. Taking things too literal and carnally when you're reading a spiritual book is not a good idea.
You got to look at that through different lenses.